Dr. Jeanette Raymond here, author of Now You Want Me, Now You Don't. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the two characters in my book to help you get a feel for where they're coming from, why they had the problems they did in their relationship, and how I help them figure out more comfortable ways of relating to each other. So first, let me tell you about Rick. He's a photographer, he's in his early 30s, and he's been married for 4 years with one son. But he came from a background where he was the eldest in his family. He had a younger sister, and his parents divorced when he was about 14. They'd been having, his father had affairs and then left his family and remarried when Rick was 18. But all the while that Rick grew up in this family, he was the good son. He tried to keep his father in line so that he wouldn't have affairs. He tried to be his mother's everything, her companion, her comforter, the one who always stood by her, who did jobs for her, who helped her parent his younger sister, and was always there for her. He liked, being with her and taking care of her and escorting her to places so that she didn't feel alone, and kind of making up for the husband she didn't have. And he kind of hated his father because of what he did. But what Rick realized growing up was that being good and reliable and, sacrificing himself for his mother and his sister didn't pay off. In fact, his mother abandoned him. When she got over the divorce, she started to go out with her friends, and she started to have a more broad social life. She started to have a better relationship with her younger daughter, because her younger daughter was carefree and wanting to go out and have fun and all the rest of it. And poor Rick felt left out. So Rick grew up desperately longing for a relationship where he could be wanted for the good boy that he was, for the loyal man that he was, for the capable, consistent, committed and dedicated person that he was to the person that was important to him. And in his early adulthood, he came across Christy, who seemed to fit the bill. She seemed to be as career-minded as him, totally smitten with him, wanting him as much as he wanted her, and so on. So he just thought, his chips had come in, he'd won the lottery, and what a wonderful thing, and how he would make this relationship everything that his parents' marriage wasn't. This was going to be the ideal connection, the best, the brightest, the strongest, the most reliable relationship, where his kids would grow up in safety and security, and he need never feel the pain and the aching that he felt as a young boy, and also the helplessness because he couldn't do anything to save his parents' marriage. So now he felt grown up, he found the right woman, he could make it into exactly what it needed to be, and it would never let him down. And he'd make sure by taking care of his wife Christy that she'd never look at anyone else, she'd never want anything else, that he would be the only one, and it would completely fulfill her. So imagine his absolute shock and horror, disappointment, when 4 years into the marriage, instead of getting closer and building stronger ties, he found himself terrified that they were driving each other away from one another. They were actually getting apart instead of coming together. That his wife wanted him sexually just to satisfy her biological urges. In fact, she, was very demanding, and he just felt like a stud. He didn't feel wanted as a human being. Nothing he did seemed to matter to her. If he wanted to help her, she dismissed it. If he tried to take care of his son, she felt like he was trying to make her into a bad mom and be the good dad. That whatever he tried to do to spoil her, to understand her, to help her, in whatever anxiety place she was in, to, share her disappointment of her own family, that none of it seemed to penetrate this absolutely immense, thick wall that she built up. And after he tried everything he could, he made that call to my office. And the two of them came into therapy, but Christy walked out in the third session saying, "It's not my fault, it's his problem. If he has issues with the marriage, I don't. He can go." And I helped him understand that, yes, he may have thought he did everything he could, but he didn't do one thing. And that was to try and understand what she might be fearing when he tried to get close. How did she receive his offers of help? How did she receive his offers of understanding and wanting to be, empathic and close and taking care of her? So on that basis, we worked together for a long, long time. And I showed him, he'd come into, his therapy every week, and he'd tell me what happened and how he tried this and he tried that. And he was angry and frustrated and wanted to give up all the time on what's the point? It's never going to work. This is useless. And I showed him that, he was doing the same thing with me. Every time I tried to help him, he would say, "No, thank you," and push me away. And we got down to his fears. And then he realized that maybe he and Christy had similar fears. And that by connecting on the similarity of the fears, not only could he understand them, but he could then use the 10 strategies I gave him to help her overcome the fears, little by little, penetrating that wall until he got in. And eventually, when he realized that it was working, it was quite surprising to him, and he kind of settled down and began to use the strategies in a more consistent basis, and it worked. So Rick had to do some work on his own first to kind of digest and process his own childhood, his own fears, his own ideals about what a marriage should be, and how a wife and husband ought to relate to one another, and let go of the fact that he was trying to undo the divorce that his parents had, the affairs and so on, and try and make this a fresh start. So now let me tell you a little bit about Christy. She was also the eldest in her family, but she came from a household where her father was caring more about the mother in the family than about the kids. So whenever Christy wanted to be the apple of her father's eye, to have fun with him or to matter to him, he would make, little gestures towards it, but his eye was always on his wife. Everybody had to take care of her because she was delicate and frail, and, she got sick from time to time. She got depressed from time to time. So Christy would get this message from her father about he wanted her sometimes when he felt in the mood to have fun, when his wife was sick and he didn't have a companion. But then as soon as she got near him and was enjoying him, he'd push her away again and go back to his wife as if she didn't exist. So she got this kind of double message of, now you want me, now you don't. What am I supposed to do? I'm not important to anybody, so I'm going to build this wall and not let you hurt me like this anymore. I don't need anybody, don't want anybody, I can manage by myself. But she still, there was that piece of her that still hungered for her parents' to be special to them, to be important like any other child. And the only way she could do it was by being sick, but that didn't last. So she tried to get them to miss her by leaving home. And they didn't. And it was devastating for her. So then she tried to, be friends with people by showing them what a good cook she was, what a good this, that, and the other, trying to offer them parts of herself that were activities, that were things she could do, things how she could help them, not that soft, gentle part of her that wanted affection and just to be loved for who she was. And she had lots of sexual relationships that didn't mean anything. She could satisfy her need for having love and affection, but without having to commit, because once she did that, she put herself in line for getting hurt and vulnerable until she met Rick. It was the answer to her prayers, and boy, was she going to make this work. Who cares about her parents and who cares about her past? And she put everything into it until the moment of their wedding. Then she got scared again, that maybe he'd want too much of her, that maybe that part of her that she'd sealed up so that nobody could hurt again, maybe that was going to come unraveled, and she didn't know what to do. So she tried to connect through sex and through nothing else. So the marriage started on a kind of uneven note, because what they hoped for was not what was actually going on between Rick and Christy. And that's what I help Rick understand in the book. And I help you, the reader, see exactly how each of these characters were longing to have a good, intimate relationship with their parents in a healthy way, to be special and important, and to grow from that healthy attachment. And each of them were thwarted, pushed aside. Now you want me from Rick's mother, now you don't. Same from Christy's dad. Now you want me, now you don't. So both of them grew up with this feeling. And when they found each other, they thought it was going to be completely different, that they'd always be there, always loving, always reliable, always safe, always trusting. But they found out that their fears were so much greater than their hopes that it wasn't possible. And it wasn't until Rick decided to get help, to help himself and Christy, that the couple came together. They come together at the end of the book to join and do their work together, after Rick had made that initial investment of himself in the therapy. And I also tell you about how my character in the book has to deal with Rick pushing me and pulling me. Now he wants me, now he doesn't. Now I'm the best thing since sliced bread, now I'm the worst thing that ever lived on this earth. And I show him that by doing what he does to me, he's experiencing what his parents did to him and doing it to me. He's experiencing what Christy does to him and doing it to me. And as we work out our relationship, when he stops doing that to me, when he lets me be available permanently to him, then he takes it out and he can do it with Christy and stabilize everything. So enjoy reading about the characters. I'm sure many of their experiences will resonate with you, whether you came from an intact family but just couldn't feel loved and connected because there was all this pulling and pushing and uncertainty and insecurity, or whether you came from a divorced and broken family where people didn't consistently care for the other, and they wanted them one moment, threw them away the next, made promises they didn't keep, and created tons of fear and insecurity. It will resonate with you, and then you will be able to look for these subtle signs of fear in your partner or in you, and use the 10 strategies I give you for the best effort to save your relationship for good and enjoy it.